It's Wednesday, August 19th, 2020. I'm Greg Nibbler, and this is Digital Trends Live. And hello, everyone. This is Digital Trends Live. I'm Greg Nibbler. Thanks for joining us wherever you are. We appreciate it. We broadcast live here every weekday, 9 a.m. Pacific, noon Eastern, bringing you trending tech headlines, news, interviews, discussions, and more. And let's get started with some news. The TikTok saga gets weirder by the day as the countdown to its forced sale goes on. So why not throw another company into the mix, like Oracle? Yeah, Oracle. Oracle is a huge company, by some estimates the second largest software company in the world based on revenue, so they could easily fund something like this, but the question is, why would they be interested in TikTok and social media? I want to quickly recap the saga here. ByteDance, which owns TikTok, currently has until November 12th now to sell or spin off all US-based interests in the company based upon an executive order issued by Trump. There have been a number of potential public suitors for the company, but the most highly publicized has been Microsoft, which has given itself a September 15th deadline to complete the sale, maybe extending that with the new further deadline for them to sell it. But Microsoft does own LinkedIn. Kind of makes sense seeing them jump into a social media platform with 80 million users. But that's not all they're after, and that's not all that Oracle would be after. So it's all that sweet, sweet data. That's really what it's all about. It's thought that Oracle is looking to beef up the cloud server side of their business and also offer up a lot of data to potential advertisers. So what better way to do all of that than pick up a TikTok with a ton of personalized data and a direct platform to show ads on. So of note, Donald Trump has said that he's supportive of Oracle purchasing TikTok as well. And also of note, Larry Ellison, the chairman of Oracle, is a big Trump supporter. So take that for what you will, but it just further adds to the drama surrounding TikTok. You can read more about it at digitaltrends.com. When it comes to the pandemic, contact tracing has been utilized to track cases, and initiatives to utilize phones to help with that has been rolled out to some parts of the world and even a few states in the US so far. But there's a new push to bring wearables into the fold, which could vastly increase the ability of health professionals to help track and ideally slow the spread of COVID-19. So there's a consortium called the Bluetooth Special Interest Group, which is a nonprofit that handles the administration and standards for the Bluetooth wireless technologies that we all use. And it's advocating the use of smartwatches, fitness bands, and even any other kinds of wearables because it would help include people who aren't regularly using a phone, or even those who use them for outdoor activities. Say you use your smart band, but you don't bring your phone with you. Well, this is another way that you could actually be able to participate in this. So particularly, this would be valuable for kids or even the elderly who aren't necessarily on phones. So the goal is to add these devices into an ENS, or an exposure notification system. So these systems allow health officials to backtrack and find people who may have been exposed to disease to alert them to get tested. So essentially, your device would send and receive pings from other devices that are near it. If you get exposed and you've opted into an ENS, then someone could trace the devices you interacted with or were near, and then potentially identify the owners of those, let them know they should quarantine and get tested. It could really help slow the spread. So data privacy, always a big concern for this. So that's why the Bluetooth SIG said it's working out the specifics of how the tech would work for wearables now, and it expects to have it available within a few months. So you can read more about that at digitaltrends.com. Continuing on with trending news, here's something you're going to see soon. Google Maps is getting a pretty major update to its services, leveraging its imaging techniques to bring a lot more details to natural features and to cities. So the updates will be rolling out to all 220 countries and territories that it covers, and you'll notice it at first when it comes to natural features. So they combine satellite imagery and a color mapping technique to give a lot more definition to things like deserts or forests or icy mountains. You can actually see the start and end of these things. For instance, forests aren't just going to be a green block on the map. It'll better show how thick the forest cover is in different areas with darker or lighter colors. It'll even define things like deserts or beaches. And so the other features that will be coming to cities. But to start, it'll just be to New York, San Francisco, and London. So the purpose of these updates is to help facilitate a lot more people who are using transportation in different ways right now because of the pandemic, essentially. So whether you're walking, using bikes or scooters, the details will include how wide or narrow a road is. It could actually show you how much room you have on a bike if you're riding down a road and you're worried about cars and the same thing. So you could also see more where sidewalks are, where crosswalks are, even pedestrian islands. So a lot of important things to help people get around. Now, these updates will be rolling out this week for the natural features, but the city side is going to take a little bit longer. They said it'll come in the coming months for those 3 cities, but then other cities will get the updates after that. Read more about it at digitaltrends.com. And one more trending story here, SpaceX. Yes, they have certainly been in the news a lot, and they've been extremely successful lately with the launches that they have been sending up, in particular for the Starlink internet satellites. And the key reason to that is because they're able to reuse so much of what they're sending up. So they celebrated their 100th launch earlier this week. And while we've seen a ton of amazing footage over the years, this video right here is pretty amazing, and it's one that Elon Musk showed. So what it's showing is recovering one half of the fairing. So that's what holds the rocket's payload, and it's really hard to be able to retrieve them both, but this is something they've been working on. So the fairing itself is about 43 feet long, 16 feet wide, weighs about 2,200 pounds, and costs $6 million. So you can see why they would want to retrieve these in the safest way possible. And as this is coming down, they're able to stabilize it with a series of nitrogen thrusters, and then actually track it with a GPS-enabled and steerable parafoil, which is basically like a parachute. So they can slow it down and drop it there into that ship at sea. That is incredibly complex, and this video is pretty great that they showcase that right here. So definitely exciting. I would say check out more about it there at digitaltrends.com. All right, and thank you everybody for joining us. Wherever you are, we do appreciate it, and we get to talk to some pretty amazing people here on the show. And joining us right now, we have a theoretical astrophysicist and the author of The End of Everything, Astrophysically Speaking, Dr. Katie Mack, who is joining the show. Doctor, thank you so much for being here with us today.
Thanks for having me.
I want to talk about a few different things here with your book, but maybe to start off at the beginning and going to the very beginning, your book is about the end of the universe, essentially, the end of everything. But I wanted to talk to you about the Big Bang and what we know about the beginning of everything and how that influenced this book.
Well, what we know about the beginning of the universe is we know when it happened. It was about 13.8 billion years ago. And we know that the universe went through a phase of being very hot and dense and sort of filled with this energetic plasma. And that's what we generally think of when we talk about the Big Bang. The universe has been expanding and cooling since that time. And by studying how the universe started and how it's been evolving, we can start to learn something about how it's going to end, what's going to happen in the very far future.
Now, you talk about 5 different theories of that. Can you talk about the process of coming to those theories?
Yeah, so in the book, I talk about these 5 different ways, which are really the kind of 5 that are most talked about in the scientific literature. So there are a set of different possibilities for the future evolution of the cosmos that are based in what we know from our current observations, our experiments, and our telescope observations about the nature of the cosmos and the nature of how physics works in this universe.
And with these 5 different ones that you've got, and again, we've got an article up, and I highly encourage everybody to read the book. This is fascinating stuff. Of those 5, which one do you think is the most likely and the least likely to happen?
Well, the most likely, I think, is something we call the heat death, which is sometimes also called the big freeze. It's this idea that the universe will continue expanding and expanding forever, and it will get to a point where the universe is basically empty. It'll be a cold, dark, empty, lonely place where we won't be able to see distant galaxies anymore, and everything will kind of just fade away. That's probably the most likely. Maybe the least likely, based on our current data, is something called a big crunch, where instead of expanding forever, the universe would stop its expansion and everything would come crashing back together. And we'd end up in that sort of hot, dense state again. But it would be actually a little bit worse because there would be more radiation in the universe from all of the stuff that's ever been shining, all the starlight and everything like that. And that radiation would be compressed. The universe would get really, really hot and would end up sort of incinerating stars toward the end of that process. And that would be a very dramatic and very violent way to go. But we think it's not very likely because the universe's expansion is actually getting faster. And so it's hard to see how that would stop and turn around.
As we see a lot of advancements that have really been happening in the last several years, in particular in science, space exploration, space study, what are some of the big things that have happened that have helped you with your studies and that can help us learn more about the cosmos?
Oh, well, I mean, one thing is the discovery of dark energy. It's something that's making the universe expand faster. We don't know what it is, but we can see the expansion of the universe speeding up. And that's really changed how we see the universe and how we see its evolution over time. And just recently, there's been some really interesting work looking at gravitational waves. So we've been able to actually see or sort of detect or feel the vibration of space itself as black holes are colliding in other galaxies. And that's given us a new way to look at the universe, a new way to see how it's changing over time. And that's telling us a lot about gravity, how gravity works, and just about how our universe is evolving. And that's going to be much more interesting over time. We're going to get more and more data, and that's just a new window on the universe. So it's a really fascinating thing.
Is there any one piece of technology that you think is the most valuable right now when studying this?
Um, I think that it's really a combination of things. We're just getting so much data from so many different kinds of observations, new arrays of telescope, new surveys of the sky, and new particle physics experiments that are also giving us insight into how physics works and possibly how the universe will evolve. So I think the most valuable thing is that we're looking in a lot of different directions using a lot of different kinds of technology. There's not just one thing that's going to give us all the clues.
Well, it's really fascinating stuff that you have here. And again, I want to remind everybody too to pick up the book. So, The End of Everything, Astrophysically Speaking. And Doctor, thank you so much for being here and talking about this. It's really exciting to see all of your work and just laying it out there and thinking about what the possibilities are. Appreciate you being here on Digital Trends Live.
Thanks for having me. It's always fun to talk about the end of the universe.
Anytime. Dr. Katie Mack right here on Digital Trends Live. Really, really appreciate her joining us. And thank you to everybody for joining us here as well. So we appreciate all of you. We broadcast live here every single weekday, 9 a.m. Pacific, noon Eastern. And joining us right now, we're going to have another conversation about how the pandemic is affecting things, but really as a whole, how women's businesses are affected by so many different factors. And joining us, we have the founder and CEO of iFund Women. I want to thank Karen Kahn for joining us right now. Karen, thank you so much for being here.
My pleasure. It's great to be here.
There's a lot I want to talk to you about, in particular with iFund Women, but I want to give everybody maybe a bit of a broader context of what the state is for women-owned businesses and what some of these big obstacles are that they are facing that really they shouldn't be facing.
Yeah, absolutely. This is the thing we think about, eat, sleep, and breathe every day here at iFund Women. And the problem we're solving is that there's a complete lack of funding options for early stage women entrepreneurs, and the data just simply does not lie. So last year, out of the 300 billion, nearly 300 billion in venture capital dollars that were deployed, about 2.8% was allocated
Wow.
to female founded businesses. Even worse, for women of color founded businesses, the number is 0.32%. So essentially, male founded businesses get 97% of VC. But when you talk about women owned businesses, which are, our customers, most of them don't go down the VC path, right? They go down a more sustainable path to build a business that's going to put food on the table. So there are systemic biases across the financial services industry vis-a-vis startup funding, not just with VC, but with banks, where women get 50% less in a loan amount and a much higher rate than our male counterparts. Yet ironically, women tend to pay their loans back faster. So iFund Women is really here to solve that systemic bias problem in the financial services system for women-owned businesses.
That is a staggering statistic there as far as where all that funding goes. So that's clearly a huge issue. What are some ways then going into, yeah, that's ridiculous. So going into your business, with iFund Women, tell us about this. And, clearly we see what some of the inspiration was for founding this, but what some of the different ways are that you're helping some of these businesses overcome these obstacles.
Yeah, that's a great question. So iFund Women is really a funding marketplace. So it's a two-sided marketplace where on one side, you've got all the women-owned businesses in the country and in the world. So in the US, there's about 13 million women-owned businesses. Globally, there's now over 163 million women-owned businesses. And on the other side of the marketplace, you've got all of the people who want to fund and support them. You've got individual funders, and we've got enterprise level funders. And that's the area that I am particularly excited about, because the trend that we're seeing, and we started to see last year in 2019, is that enterprises and big corporations like Visa and Unilever and P&G are starting to disrupt the VC landscape for women-owned businesses. And the reason is because there's such a massive funding gap, and it's going to take, if it's going to take another 150 years for the pay gap, the wage gap to close, think about how much longer it's going to take for the startup funding gap to close. And so the enterprises are really stepping in to help. And it's really been a fascinating trend that we have started to see last year. So we've just been building products into the marketplace to make it more seamless and easy for brands like Visa, who want to fund merchants that use or could potentially use their contactless payment solution, who want to give them grants, who want to give them coaching scholarships, education, mentorship. So our marketplace facilitates that all, technologically, essentially.
So it's kind of incubating everything all in one, one way right there, getting everybody everything that they need. I love the fact that these enterprises are getting involved. Now, for women out there who own businesses or maybe starting up, and you mentioned, the VC money is just atrocious how that's being delegated. But what would you recommend for women out there who are starting up a business right now? What are the first steps you would recommend to them?
So the first step is, well, it's sort of a two-parter answer. So we work with over 50,000 women-owned businesses, and we're a seed stage startup, started 3 years ago with, we don't advertise. So it's just, thank you for having us on because you're spreading the word. Essentially, we get lots of women who come to us that are at the idea stage, right? We have more established businesses as well, but at the idea stage, when someone comes to me and says, Karen, or to one of the coaches, I have an idea for a business and I want to quit my day job and I'm going to do this thing. I'm ready. The first thing we say to them is, do not quit your day job to be an entrepreneur. The pay is horrible, in fact, non-existent. And you don't even know if this is going to be a business yet. You don't have a business until your product or service is being purchased for money by strangers. And so that's really the first piece of advice we give, is like, all this entrepreneurship stuff that you see in magazines and it looks fabulous, and like, I look like I woke up like this, which I clearly didn't. It's a really hard journey. So the only reason you should take the journey is if you have demand for your product or service. So in order to prove demand, the first thing that we really recommend is to do your research. And again, do your research with strangers. Do people even want the product or service you're building? And if the answer is yes, okay, great. Then your next step is to raise debt-free capital through online fundraising or crowdfunding, whatever you want to call it, which is one of the products we have in our funding marketplace. And what that allows you to do is it allows you to prove demand for your product or service before you invest in supply. And by supply, I mean wasting years of your life chasing an equity round or quitting your job and going into debt. So don't do any of those things first. You do your research, then you crowdfund or online fundraise for cash to build your MVP, your pilot, your prototype. And then from there, you're beta testing. You're testing, you're learning, you're iterating. And we always tell people an overnight success takes 10 years. So it's a slog. It absolutely is. You're not going to have any BS over here at iFund Women. We're not going to tell you it's fun and glamorous and so cool. Parts of it are, but most of it's not. It's hard work. But if you're super passionate about your product or service and you have people that want to buy it, then you should go for it.
I mean, I appreciate that honesty and just being clear, on what it takes to do something like this. For women out there, for everybody out there who wants to support what you're doing, what's the best place for me to send them to, and how they can get involved?
That's a great question. Okay. So if you are a brand and you are watching this and you have a marketing budget and you want to support women-owned businesses, female founders, startups, because they could be your potential customers. When you think about Visa, Visa's a big consumer brand. What do we have? We have entrepreneurs and merchants who are, using contactless payment. So think out of the box about how these women-owned businesses could potentially be your customers. So if you're a big brand, come to us. We want to help you deploy grants. And if you're a women-owned business and you need support, if you need funding, if you need coaching, and if you need a community who gets what you're going through, come to ifunwomen.com and, engage with all the things. There's lots of stuff that you can participate in.
Fantastic. Well, Karen, thank you so much for joining us here to talk about this, and very happy to help spread the word about everything that you're doing, and I appreciate it a lot. Thanks for being here on Digital Trends Live.
You got it. Peace.
Same. All right. Very interesting information there. So a lot to find out. So definitely go to their website, check out everything that they're doing. Very important stuff. All right, continuing on here with Digital Trends Live. Again, thank you to everybody who joins us wherever you are. You've probably seen some of the news about how the post office is going through some issues, some funding issues. Well, there's a surprising group that is supporting it. And to talk about that right now, we've got an article up. We're joined by Zoe Kristen Jones to talk about this. Zoe, thank you so much for being here. This is such an interesting article. Can you tell us a little bit about the context of this, where this all started?
Sure. So basically, as everyone knows, the post office is going through a little bit of a funding issue, which means that, as the Trump administration is trying to roll back certain funding, and a lot of people you see on social media are beginning to push back and say, oh, wait a minute, we need to start helping fund the post office, selling, buying stamps, anything we can do. Teens on TikTok and Twitter have taken to using stan culture to kind of help save the post office. So it's a very interesting thing. They're basically applying something that you would use for, say, like a viral artist or pop band, and they use it to the post office. It is very, very funny. Some of these include memes, like you buy the merch that you can see, a kind of way to support the post office, but also use their own meme culture. And the best of all are fan cams, like you see on the screen right now. It's basically a short video set to like really hoppin' music, used usually for, singers and artists, but now they're using it to support the post office, which is pretty incredible, actually. I actually talked to an 18-year-old artist from SoCal who made the viral one that you see, one of the biggest ones on Twitter right now. And she used it as a way to kind of take a serious subject and make it a little bit lighter, and also kind of spread awareness to what's going on right now.
I love this. I mean, it's such a great use of that. I do find it interesting that, that it's the USPS that they're going after. Obviously, there's a lot of issues going on, with the funding and all of that brought it to light. But what's some of the other response been from people who are watching these? And are these kids like, honestly, do they know much about the Postal Service, or where do you think it's going to go from here?
I think it's actually really interesting. So the kids that I spoke to, they're showing a real sense of knowledge about the issues, not just, I heard somewhere that we need to save the post office, but specifically, like Postmaster DeJoy, the girl that I spoke to was like, look, here's the deal, here's the problem. And it's not just a partisan issue, because some of the Democrats that we love also were a part of, the bill that ended up stripping the post office of its funding. So they're not just showing, like the silly thing where, it's fun to save the post office, but I think they're showing not only real initiative, but real creativity in the way that they're using this culture to kind of raise awareness.
Wow, that is so cool that that's going on. I love that, and just like you said, they're educated, they know what they're talking about, but also utilizing these platforms. Is it mostly on Twitter or TikTok? What's the social media platform they're using the most?
The biggest ones you'll see on TikTok, they're pretty much alt creators, so not the ones that you would see usually doing, the renegade dances, but they are getting a lot of traction. One of the ones I interviewed, Taylor, hers got like 170K likes on Twitter alone, even to the point where a Republican think tank copied her fan cam, stripped it of her watermark, and put it in like a less explicit song. So we're seeing a lot of people supporting the idea, even if there are older people who are like, I don't know what's happening, but this seems fun.
I mean, what a weird world we're in right now, where there's a stan culture for the Postal Service, but that's a positive, and I love positives where we can get them. So this is really great to read this. And again, the article's up there at Digital Trends too, so I encourage everybody to go take a look at your article that you've got up, kind of documenting this. And Zoe, thank you very much for joining us here on the show too. I know this is your first time on the show, so appreciate it. And thanks for being here.
No problem. Thanks for having me.
So definitely check that out. Seriously, it's really, really fascinating seeing where that's what's going on with that, and I appreciate Zoe's reporting on that. So again, we've got the article at digitaltrends.com. All right, we need to take a break because we need to get the two hosts of TBD on for the Wednesday segment, and what's it going to be about? I don't know. Adrian and Jess are going to tell us about. That's why it's TBD. Stick around. Back here in a minute with more Digital Trends Live. And welcome back to Digital Trends Live. I'm Greg Nibbler. And again, thank you for joining us wherever you are. We appreciate it. And if you are an avid watcher of this show, you know that Wednesdays is when we have TBD. What's it going to be about? I don't know, but let's introduce our hosts right now. First off, we have Jess Serba. Hello, Jess. How you doing?
Greg, I'm wonderful. How are you doing?
I am doing good. And also, of course, we have Adrian Warner. Hello, Adrian.
Hello, hello.
So, with TBD, what are we talking about today?
Well, as you know, TBD, we take a look at the world of tech and pop culture, and this week's title is called Theater's Back, Darling, because we're going to be talking about going back to the movies. I thought that one was real good. Props to Mike for that. So I have to ask, Greg, are you eager to get back to the movie theaters? Is this something that you've been looking forward to?
I mean, yes, I'm looking forward to doing anything, but I don't know if I'm ready to be in a room crowded full of people. But in theory, yes.
Yeah, no, that's fair. Obviously, we've had to give up a lot in the past several months, due to the pandemic, and in the interest of public safety, we've had to give up bars and events and, of course, movie theaters. Well, This week, AMC is actually going to open some of their theaters back up to the public. Of course, there are a lot of standards and restrictions in place since they closed down all of their locations this past March. They're going to be opening up officially 100 locations starting tomorrow. And as of this past Monday, their theaters have been allowing people to start purchasing tickets again. So all of this reopening will have social guidelines in place. Theaters will only be at 30% capacity, social distancing guidelines. They'll only be sold at 30% capacity. Masks will be required both by staff and moviegoers at all times, except when eating and drinking. And they're actually using seat blocking technology for their ticketing engine so that every other row will remain empty and that there will be an appropriate amount of spacing in between groups of people going to the movies. So obviously this is a big deal. And also on top of it, AMC is celebrating their centennial anniversary. So to commemorate this reopening and its centennial, AMC is going to be offering movies in 2020 at 1920s prices, which means that on opening day, that's 15 cents a ticket. So that's really cool. You can go on AMC's website and see if you're in one of the areas where they're reopening theaters. Certain states are not going to be reopening, like New York or California. Those local guidelines and restrictions are still in place, so movie theaters will not be allowed to open those states. But there are, like I said, 100 locations where you can go see and catch a movie. So what's going to be coming out this week? Well, I'm glad you asked. There's going to be a new Russell Crowe film called Unhinged, which I feel like is how we're all feeling a little bit right now.
Yep.
And then the highly anticipated The New Mutants will be following on August 28th, which is the last installment in the X-Men series. And then coming up just a little bit later, on September 3rd, we're going to be anticipating Christopher Nolan thriller Tenet to finally hit theaters. Now, since the box office is really wonky right now and releases are kind of at a standstill, they're also going to be showing some older films after the opening day. You're going to be able to catch those at $5 a ticket. So there will be things like Black Panther, Back to the Future, and The Empire Strikes Back, kind of to get people excited to go back to the movies and enjoy some oldies but some goodies. Now, taking a step back, there was a really historic deal between AMC and Universal that was struck back in June, and that's going to kind of change what the future of releases look like now that we have the opportunity to go back to the movie theater. So to talk about that, I'm going to hand it over to Miss Serba to talk about that historical deal.
Yeah, so let's chat about this groundbreaking historical deal between AMC and Universal. To break it down, essentially, America's largest theater chain and a major Hollywood studio came to a very surprising agreement, which is that Universal's movie releases could stream on paid video on demand platforms only 17 days after they're shown in theaters. Historically, the entire industry has adhered to kind of an understood theatrical window, which was basically a 70 to 90 day period from the film's release in major theaters to when it moved onto digital platforms such as premium video, cable, or streaming services. This is huge, just simply because it hasn't been accepted or ever really done. In simpler times, back in 2011, Universal actually experimented with this by offering its comedy thriller Tower Heist on video on demand 3 weeks after its theatrical debut. And at that time, several of America's largest theater chains announced that they would ban booking the film in retaliation. So as such, this agreement has potentially far-reaching implications for the film industry. So first, it establishes a new profit-sharing method or profit-sharing model, as AMC will share in revenue from the studio's paid video-on-demand rentals. Although they have not announced any specific details around this yet, we'll have to wait and see. But for example, Universal could theoretically keep a film in theaters or at the multiplex beyond this newly allotted 17 days, in addition to making it available online. So that means they'll share the wealth, whether, moviegoers are actually buying tickets for theaters or watching the film on television, tablet, or phone. So let us not forget that a mere 5 months ago, AMC said it would essentially ban all Universal releases from its theaters after the studio announced they were taking Trolls World Tour straight to PVOD. And then right after that, the NBC Universal CEO came out and announced that Trolls had actually made $100 million from these paid video rentals. So it seems that the reality of the times have really pushed this relationship between the theaters and studios to adapt. The, this deal, of course, is not without questions, as with any new paradigm shifting venture. Questions such as, would another theater chain want to play a Universal film if it's going to go straight into VOD within 17 days? Will we see other partnerships partner exclusively? Can you only see certain studios' films at particular theater chains? Or will Universal Films be playing elsewhere once things kind of start to open back up and execs are able to kind of strike further deals? As AMC is America's largest theater chain, I think it's likely to look for other studios to start negotiations with AMC. The CEO has mentioned that they have opened this up to other studios as well. So whether they wait to kind of see proof of concept or they decide to jump right in, we'll have to wait and see. Another question is, will it harm, indie films, since many need the time to build up to larger amounts of theaters? Or does this fast track to VOD actually provide the opportunity for them to return to more of an opportunity for creative risk taking instead of studios having to just solely focus solely on the bottom line? So there's so much opportunity here, I think, to look out for in the coming months. So I'll be really excited to see where this heads.
Yeah, definitely interesting. I still don't know if I'm going to go back into a theater anytime soon, but I'm glad movies are returning. So that part I'm happy about. All right, going from that, great information. We also have, of course, Kick Stop It. So what is our product today?
Well, this week's Kick Stop It is a silicone face mask called the See Us 95. It's a silicone face mask that's working towards being N95 rated. And it's a really interesting design because it doesn't have any sort of, loops for your ear holes. It basically adheres to your face, and, being silicone, you can see through it. So you're not having a mask blocking your face. It comes with 2 little filters on the side that you replace after about a week or so. It looks really alien to me. It's kind of creepy.
Amphibious, honestly.
No.
I
don't like it at all. No.
I like
That's
the idea
horrifying.
that you can see someone make facial expressions at you, that you can see someone smiling at you, but also I don't know, I saw a few pictures in there where it's kind of steaming up, and I just don't know how I feel about that one.
Why does the filter have to look like that, though? That's just, it's like some alien stuck on the side of your face. I'd rather just not see a face.
It's like you have mouth sideburns. There it is. That one looks like really not sure.
I don't know.
I'm really not sure how this is going to work with facial hair. For people with longer facial hair, I feel like this will just kind of get bunched all up in it, although I guess that's a problem with masks anyways. The cool thing is that you can just throw it in the microwave or the dishwasher to disinfect it, which I think is a nice touch and kind of helps prevent waste. But I don't know. I like the fact that I feel like there's a plus side to the fact that we all have to wear masks and we don't have to see each other's faces sometimes.
Yeah.
Introverts.
Sometimes it's not so bad.
Yeah.
All right. Well, Kick Stop It or Kickstart It. Jess, what do you think?
It terrifies me. I'm going to Kick Stop It.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Adrian?
I'm on board with that. I think it's really creepy looking. Cool design, but just not looking comfortable.
Yeah, I mean, I like the tech aspect, but no, that is full of nightmares. I would run away from anybody wearing it if it looks like that. I do not want that. I'll just never leave my house again. That's fine. All right.
Mask full of nightmares.
Again. Yep. Don't need it. All right. Well, again, that's Kick Stop It. So before we close out, though, for TBD, there he is.
Yep.
There
he is. Taking his little hops up the stairs.
Awesome. Charlie. Well, Adrian, Jess, thank you, as always. Another great edition of TBD. All right, Adrian and Jess, always TBD is awesome. Check out the other episodes too. Check out everything Digital Trends. We put them up on social every week. It's great, and we appreciate you joining us here every single day, wherever you are. Hit that subscribe button, and that way you get notifications when we go live, which is 9 a.m. Pacific, noon Eastern every single day. But nonetheless, it helps for a little bit of notification, and you can share the show. Let other people know about it. Go to our YouTube channel, our Digital Trends Live YouTube channel. Hit subscribe there. That would be wonderful. And thank you. Seriously, for everybody. So tomorrow on the show, as usual, we will be back. We'll have Lisa Marie Segarra here with an update on everything going on in the world of gaming, some great interviews, and all of the tech news that you will need to start your day off. I'm Greg Nibbler. I'll see you right back here tomorrow with another edition of Digital Trends Live.